Now then, so today I'm doing a video that I've been wanting to do for a while now. So I've had these all-terrain tyres on for like 2 years, but the whole time I've had them I've never carried a spare. I've had a spare, but I've never carried it in the van because it's just too big and it wouldn't fit underneath where the old spare was because it was fatter tyre. So here's my spare. All-terrain TA BF Goodrich. Well, that is that one. I got that one off eBay for 50 quid, but the actual tyres I'm using are hifly all-terrain tyres, and I love them. I think they're great. They're just a better price than the BF Goodrich. Those are 50 quid each brand new. That one was 50 quid used off eBay. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a DIY spare wheel hanger on here, so I can put my spare wheel on the back door, so it's going to be quite high up in that section there. So I've got a spare wheel, I've got a piece of plywood, and I've got some bolts and my drill. I think that's all I need, so let's get to it. So my spare wheel has got 5 holes, so what I've got to do, I've got to get them 5 holes onto this piece of wood here. This piece of wood is going to go on the inside of the door, on the back of the metal, to help spread the weight of the wheel pulling on the door frame. So it's going to have that, and it's going to have 5 bolts, so the weight's going to be nice and spread out, so hopefully it won't damage the panel of the van and make it go off misshapen and stuff. So what I've got to do is I've got to lift the wheel onto that, draw the holes, make sure I get the centre point as well, mark the centre point on the back of the van to make sure it's not interfering with my bike rack, and then drill all the holes, bolt it all on, and just hang the wheel on. It seems pretty simple, so hopefully it should be. So I've measured a little cross on the middle of the sheet of wood, the sheet of ply, and I've lined that cross up with the middle of the wheel. Just here. So now all we've got to do is mark the holes for the wheel on the wood and drill those out. Check if the bolt fits. There we go. So that's going to go, so I'm going to drill a hole in the van, and then that'll go through the van, and then washers and nuts will go in there, and the wheel will slide on, and extra nuts will go on to secure it. So what I've done here is I've measured the width of my wheel and the height of my wheel and marked the centre so it's not interfering with this or with this. And I've got the centre of my wood with me 4 bolt holes on, and I've got to line that up with my little centre there. Then I can mark my holes that I'm going to drill for the bolts. Got myself a little set of these guys, so let's hope it makes light work of drilling through the back of the van. Pretty good drill bit. So now I've got to cut through the foil bubble wrap, take out the insulation, put the board in, make sure it's bolted and sealed, and then reseal the back of the foil bubble wrap. I've got some tape there so I can just tape it back together, and then should be able to put the wheel on just like that. Dry as a bone, very nice. Okay, so I've painted the drill holes and they've dried. They've had time to dry. Now I've got my piece of wood with my bolts in. I'm going to try and feed it through here without having to rip off too much of the insulation, and then I might just feed it through first and then put the bolts in. Actually, it'd probably be easier. And then put a little bit of seed on the outside, and then put the So once that's tight, that back panel will be really nice and sturdy, reinforced by the wood behind it. Just got to close that back up again once it's all finished. And then I had the original ply on the back doors, and it was only thin, so I thought it was light. I took it off, and oh my god, is that wood heavy. So what I've done, I've got some more of this, which is the spruce, nice and thin, and it's actually really light. So once this has been finished, I'm going to clad the back doors like the rest of the van and paint it the same, so it'll all be nice and matching, and it'll just finish it off really well. So what I've done here is I've added these little bits of push fit tubing as little spacers, so I don't want to like over tighten the wheel against the paint and try and not damage the paint. Hopefully I've done it the right measurements. Let's see how that goes. Cut the bolts down about 2 inches because they were just far too long. I would have been screwing the nuts on forever, so cut it down with enough room for 2 nuts to go on after I've put the wheel on. So I'm going to put the wheel back on now, tighten the nuts up, and I am done. So that's it, job done. I've been putting this job off for so long, and turns out, piece of cake. Only took me like an hour to do probably. I cut the bolts down. I think I only had 8 bolts altogether, so I've obviously got 2 without double bolts on, double nuts on even, but it just feels pretty solid. Like there's a tiny little bit of wobble of the door, but not much. Like it's holding it perfectly, just enough clearance there, just enough clearance to open the door still and to close it. So now I've just got to retape the back of the door, and then the next step would be to clad the back of the door there. But my cowl came today, so while I've still got time, I'm going to put the new bigger cowl on from last video. If you didn't see the last video, and I said I needed a new bigger cowl, so I'm going to put that on and make sure my flue is all nice and watertight. That looks so good. Okay, so I'm up on the roof. Here's the old flue flashing. Here's the new flue flashing, which is the same as my old flue flashing. It is a deck tight one, and I've got the deck tight fixing kit as well. So I'm just unscrewed the old bolts, and I'm going to scrape all this gunk off. Then I'm going to clean it up and mark where the bolts are so I can line this up and use the same holes. And I'm going to keep this on as well. I'm not going to take this one off, I'm going to keep it on, so it'll be like double glazing, like sort of insulated, doubly insulated around that bit of flue, so that space will be insulated in between the flue as well. So here we go. Turns out the bit is slightly wider than my previous black one, and it's coming up on this lip here, so We just have to move the screws a bit further in and bend that bit up and make sure I've got plenty of sealant in that section to just make sure the gap's filled. Other than that, it's looking good. So the Deck-Tite kit comes with this fireproof, heat-proof sealant. It comes with a load of bolts to screw it in with, and these little plastic covers to help waterproof it a bit further. So what I'm going to do now is run the sealant around this edge, squash it down, send the screws in, and then that's it. Basically, put the flue up, make sure it's nice and tight, and we are waterproof. Good to go. Okay, nice and sealed. Now let's see how the flue sits in. It should be nice and snug now. I had to add a little extension on there just to push the insulated flue section up a little bit higher. So I've put a little bit in there, a little 10 centimetre extension. I had to cut another bit about back a stovepipe, and I moved this caliper here just to help hold it a little bit better. I'm going to keep that low down here now, and I just want to maybe get a longer tap for that, just so it hangs off here, so I can just go at the bottom of the stove instead. And there it is, all nice and sealed at the top now. It's quite nice and snug. Should be nice and watertight. It's stretched around it quite well. I've put a Jubilee clip on there to hold that nice and tight, and another extra Jubilee clip on the top one here, because sometimes when you're going through trees and stuff, you can just pull the top of that off, so it's extra tight on now. All sealed up and good to go. So that is it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope that helps with any of you that want to put your own wheel on your own spare wheel on your van, but you have a budget. I think that only cost me like a tenner, £15 at most to do that, compared to buying a legitimate spare wheel holder. So yeah, thanks for watching. Subscribe if you haven't already, press that like button, and I will see you next time. Cheers.